Let's talk about jumping to conclusions. This lesson is called Don't Sprain Your Ankle, because jumping to conclusions hurts you. It makes things worse for you. Jumping to conclusions refers to basing your beliefs or your ideas on incomplete information or incorrect information. So jumping to conclusions is one of those unhelpful thinking patterns that we're working on. And remember, we talked about these unhelpful thinking patterns kind of paving highways. So the more that you're engaging in these thinking patterns, you're paving those highways and making them stronger and reinforcing using these thinking patterns. So we're still trying to crush those. So jumping to conclusions is a really, really common one for anxiety. There are two kinds of jumping to conclusions that we're going to talk about today. The first one is mind reading. And mind reading is when you're trying to anticipate or guess what people are thinking about you or what people are saying about you or what's going on around you. This is a big one for people with anxiety, because I know that you spend a lot of time trying to figure out what's happening, trying to control people's impression of you, and then probably fixating a lot afterwards on potential mistakes you've made, or maybe even like faces people have made and you're trying to decipher what their face could mean, or if they said a certain phrase or if they looked at you in a certain way, does that mean something? And so, mind reading can be a very, very dangerous trap to get into. The second type of jumping to conclusion is called fortune telling. And fortune telling refers to the tendency for people with hyper anxiety to try to predict or guess an outcome that hasn't happened yet. Now, in everyday life, we do try to predict outcomes that haven't happened yet. Like when we're driving, we drive defensively. We try to anticipate any danger before we get to that danger so that we can avoid it. So in some ways, it is a good idea to try to think of potential outcomes. But for people who have anxiety, your alert system for those potential dangers or potential outcomes is just off the wall, right? Like your alarm system is just going crazy all the time. And so you're anticipating dangerous outcomes or consequential outcomes without really having the evidence to support that. So probably you do this a lot. If you struggle with anxiety, you probably do these jumping to conclusions, behaviors, and thinking patterns a whole lot. And so I'm going to challenge you moving forward in this course to really start reflecting and trying to pin down when this happens and challenge it. And I know it feels so uncomfortable when you are in that pattern and you're thinking, oh my gosh, she said this thing and she must think this thing about me and I don't know how to let go of this, and I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking on it and thinking on it and thinking on it. It's important for you to really stop yourself. And I know it feels like, but I don't want to, but this is real. This is really how I'm feeling. But challenging yourself, really attacking it is important. One of the reasons that it's very important, especially with people with anxiety, is because often jumping to conclusions becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it is very likely that there have been times that you have thought somebody was thinking something about you, right? You're engaging in that mind reading, like somebody is thinking this or somebody has this perception of me. And so you've responded in a certain way that potentially causes that to happen, that potentially creates the situation that you were so anxious to avoid anyway, that may not have even happened, because jumping to conclusions creates often the conclusion that you're afraid of. So stopping this pattern, identifying that, is a really, really critical part of you recovering from anxiety.